All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending so far today on GIS Day Eve. We're going to go ahead and start with our presentations for some of our GIS users across the county. First up will be the Department of Environment and Sustainability. And I would like to introduce Kristen, who will be one of our colleagues over at DES, who will be enlightening us on all things mapping brownfields.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone on the GIS team for giving DES, the Department of Environment and Sustainability, the floor as part of GIS Day. I'm happy to present. My name's Kristen Williams. I'm a senior environmental specialist and Brownfield program lead with the Department of Environment and Sustainability. And just right off the bat, I want to say that I am not a GIS expert, and that's okay. Other people use GIS. Not everybody builds maps, but a lot of folks here at the county use maps. I'm one of those folks that uses maps a lot, but I don't always build them. I need to call in some reinforcements for that. And I'll just go ahead and kick things off. We're going to be talking about brownfields today. Here's just a roadmap of where we're going with the presentation. I figure we should go over a little bit of brownfield basics because it's sort of a uncommon term. Why do we map brownfields? Why is this important? And then how we went about creating the Brownfields Public Viewer 2.0. So first, brownfield basics. So the brownfield definition from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, US EPA, is as follows. A brownfield is a property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of which may be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. So really, and I'm going to call back to this a few times in the presentation, the definition of a brownfield is a little bit, hazy. It's a little bit squishy because it can be contaminated and it can also not be contaminated. But developers, potentially interested parties need to be deterred from it for some reason. Usually they know it's contaminated or they suspect that this land could be contaminated. And here are just some examples of brownfields. So your typical factory or maybe a closed down historical factory, an old gas station, a dry cleaning facility. They actually historically used a lot of hazardous solvents in the cleaning process. So we see a lot of contaminated dry cleaners, just vacant land. Like I said before, it may or may not be contaminated. So kind of kind of a vibes-based definition, really. You look at a site and you're deterred from it because it could be contaminated. So these are just examples. So the Cook County Brownfield Program, I'm the program lead for that. And what our goal is, we want to assess and remediate brownfield sites throughout suburban Cook County. So taking on these types of brownfield projects, it can be very expensive, technically complicated, and just generally overwhelming for a lot of property owners. So we step in and we can provide funding and we can offer various services to make assessment and cleanup just a little bit easier. And this work helps to improve public health, getting these contaminants out of the ground. And a lot of these sites are vacant and potentially dangerous to trespassers or other individuals in the neighborhood. So cleaning them up, removing dangerous structures can really benefit a neighborhood and make them healthier and safer. It can also spur economic growth, create jobs. Once a site is ready for redevelopment, we see that, different commercial, industrial, residential developers can come in and use this land if we can help make it, usable. This will increase tax revenue. A lot of the smaller municipalities in Cook County really heavily depend on the tax revenue from every single property. And the tax revenue is used to do things like, fix sidewalks, critical infrastructure upgrades. They depend on tax revenue from all properties. And a lot of brownfield properties have kind of fallen off the tax rolls. So they're not the municipalities are not receiving tax revenue from a lot of these brownfield sites. And then lastly, prepare open space for ecosystem services like flood control. Sometimes the best use of a property is just to remain vacant and maybe allow a river to overflow its banks onto this vacant land. But brownfield remediation can help achieve all of these things. I'm going to kind of gloss over this, but it's a grant-based program, and we've funded it with various grants, including US EPA and American Rescue Plan Act funding. So we hustle pretty hard to get this program funded and keep it funded so we can keep providing these services to the county. Here's some examples of different brownfield projects that we've worked on. This is a former wire mill in Burnham. That was, I would say 50% collapsed when we first uh, became aware of the property. And in this case, the remediation really was demolition, clearing the site, uh, planting new grass, just making the site a lot safer and potentially usable in the future for the municipality. So I think we can all agree it looks a lot better there in 2025. Here are some other examples of gas station remediation projects. We've got one in Posen, South Chicago Heights, Maywood, and this really is just a snapshot of a lot of different active gas station projects we have in Cook County. As you can see, they're removing these leaking underground storage tanks from the site. All tanks leak. It's just kind of a matter of time. And we're helping to get these abandoned properties cleaned up so it's safer for the community, get these contaminants out of soil and groundwater, and then make these sites safer and usable in the future. Here is another, believe it or not, here on the left-hand side of the screen. It looks like a vacant site, and it is in that photo, but it was a former gas station. So due to contamination, that site could not be used. It was, developers were deterred by the risk and cost involved in that cleanup. So we stepped in, helped the municipality, provided a loan in this case, so the municipality could fund the cleanup, and then they ended up constructing single family homes at the site, which were sold before construction was even completed. So this is really proof of concept. We can clean up these sites and we can put them back to productive use. So since the program started in 2014, our program has assessed or remediated over 151 brownfield sites across Cook County, and that is over 1,200 acres. But this is, really just a fraction of the brownfield sites within the county. So mapping brownfields, why do we even want to do this? In the Calumet region, so that includes Northwest Indiana, there's not great data on just Cook County. There are over 5,400 brownfields. And again, I'm calling back to that squishy definition of a brownfield where it may or may not be contaminated. How do we know if we should count it as a brownfield versus leave it out? So we use other various databases, federal and state, to kind of determine which sites are likely to be contaminated. And I just want to highlight this work was performed at the University of Illinois, Chicago. So this is their map of potential brownfield sites in our region. And you can see there's a lot of work to do. So why map brownfield sites? There's really no comprehensive list of brownfields in the country. Again, because these sites may or may not be contaminated. Do you include it? Do you leave it out? In mapping brownfields, we can track progress. So as we saw before, a lot of this work is grant funded. So there may be funding for a few years. It may be totally spent down. It may disappear. It may come back. It can be like administration dependent. So progress sometimes is not linear. Some assessments could be performed, then remediation. We learn more assessment is needed. And by mapping brownfields, knowing where they are and recording this data, we ensure that that progress isn't lost. And it also helps to promote transparency. We want this data to be available to the public. So photos of these brownfield sites, reports that have been funded through the county. We want, residents, municipalities, et cetera, to have easy access to the information that we have prepared, and not even have to submit a Freedom of Information Act request. It'll just be there and you can download it. This also will help retain local knowledge. So, as you may be guessing, brownfield sites, it's sometimes hard to track down what happened there. When did that business close? What did they do with the drums that used to be out there? And a lot of this information we get from neighbors, from having conversations in communities. And it's helpful to make sure that that information is recorded so we know what happened at these sites. So retaining local knowledge and then smart resource allocation. We see that these certain portions of the county have a higher concentration of brownfield sites, and you'll see that through our mapper. So, if we know where the brownfields are, we can make sure to address them. Who would want to use a brownfield map? Again, I kind of went over this. Residents, you might want to know what's in your neighborhood. Municipalities, how do we attract investment? Other government agencies, I use the map. Sometimes when someone asks me a question, I'll reference a brownfield map. In the private sector, so consultants need this information for due diligence, and then other groups might want to site a warehouse and might be interested in brownfield properties. So everybody can use, a brownfield mapping application. How did we do this? So basically we had a catalyst. Our previous mapper was no longer going to be supported, so we needed to create a new one. We went through a design process, development, actually building the application, testing what works, what doesn't work, how do we want to pivot, and then launch. So from start to finish, I would say it really took us a little over a year, maybe a year and a half or so. Version 1.0, like I said, we had to retire this version. It was no longer supported, and we didn't really like how it displayed data. It was sort of separated by geographic region, by grant, and we wanted everything consolidated into one map. It was last updated in 2021, so we needed something new. This was our wish list for the version 2.0. We wanted to include all county-funded brownfield sites. So this is not comprehensive of every potential brownfield site in the county. It's ones that we've performed work. We have data, we have information to share with the public, and we want to make sure we can do that. We want it to be user-friendly. We want to cross-train staff on how to make updates, include the data that we want to present, like photos, environmental reports, show parcels rather than points so you can get a sense of the size of the site, include translations, and then again, making sure that this is easy to update years into the future. How did we decide what we wanted? We reviewed other maps created by other agencies for their brownfields. It was interesting to see how different groups have done this. We've got EAGLE, that's the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. They have their brownfields plotted there to the left. And then on the right-hand side, that's the city of Milwaukee that has a really robust brownfields program, and just kind of how they went about plotting all of their brownfield sites. So development and testing, all credit due to Cook County GIS team for constructing the mapper. They did all of that hard work, and I really just benefit from it. So I really enjoyed working with them and really was dependent on their knowledge and expertise. I believe they used ArcGIS Experience Builder, and we played around with that to see how we wanted things to look and function. We held biweekly meetings to do a lot of testing, and sort of overcome obstacles like data cleaning, making sure it was in a usable format, combining old and new data, and then figuring out how to host all of the data and sort of clickable links that we want to present to the public. So here it is. I'm not doing a live demo today because I have trust issues and I'm kind of afraid that something would go wrong. So here are some screenshots of what the mapper looks like. This is kind of zoomed to its full extent. We've got different base map options, translation options to the top right-hand corner. We've got a splash page with instructions and information about the program. So we're hoping that all users should be able to easily navigate the mapping application. I've zoomed in this image in an area that has a high concentration of brownfield sites and ones that we've worked on. So it kind of shows the different parcels. You can really get a sense of the size of the different sites. 51 brownfield sites just within this zoomed in area. And I think that was Fort Heights, Chicago Heights, South Chicago Heights area. And then you can zoom in on a specific site. So here we see a site photo. Again, a lot of these brownfield sites aren't the most photogenic. I mean, it's a lot of times a vacant site, not a ton to see, but that might be valuable information for you if you're a developer wondering if a structure exists or just what the site looks like. Toward the bottom there, you can see different reports and links to Cook Viewer. So we wanted to make it really a one-stop shop so users can access all of the data they might need about a brownfield site. Let's see here, quarterly updates. We want to update it quarterly. It's not really quite in its final form yet. We're still making some updates, but that's going to be a continuous process. Getting toward the end here, let's see, what's the outcome and impact? This shows all county-funded brownfield sites in one place. Rather than having it divided over multiple tabs, you can really see the distribution of the different sites that we've worked on and where they are geographically distributed in the county. We think it's user-friendly, so it's a little bit easier to use than version 1.0, and also includes instructions and translation options. It also includes transparency through open data sharing. So all of this is easily accessible to the public. They can download reports, any sort of data we have. We want to make it easy to access. And then here at the Department of Environment and Sustainability, we love georeference data. A lot of our programs collect data that is associated with a location. So we're sort of in the process of, looking at the data we have and figuring out how we can present this to the public in different ways. Because a lot of our data is based on real-time monitoring or inspections or permitting. So we're looking to the future and seeing how we can map more data than just brownfields. Special thanks to everyone on the GIS team that helped build this app. I'm so grateful for your help. It's always a pleasure working with you. And I tried to replicate one of those cheesy 1990s inspirational posters there to the right. And yeah, I think that's sort of the end of the presentation. We've got links. I'm not sure if this will be available publicly, but we've got a link to the Brownfield Public Viewer and then a link to the Brownfield Program website. So I think that wraps up our presentation.